Don't be bitter, be better. Don't be bitter, be better. That's today's theme of the day, because we all need a little reminder. We need a little reminder to lighten up, first on ourselves, because everything starts with self, and when we're lighter on ourselves and not bitter and in resentment toward others, because really all that is a reflection of the bitterness and resentment we have for ourselves. There's a harsh reality and truth. So how many of you out there have been sucked into the bitterness, to the toxic climate of everybody's got to point a finger and they don't want to look at the three pointing back at themselves? See, it's like a loaded gun. You're pulling a trigger and that trigger is pointing back at you and you think it's going to go out, but you got 3 times as much power coming back at you. That's some humble pie, baby. Nobody wants to be bitter. Nobody wants to feel like crap. And the irony is with feeling like crap, when we're stuck in misery, when we're in the mud, it's really hard to see our way out of it. Because it's easier to see what's in that muck than it is to see outside of it, right? Think about that. So you're in a mud pit. You are literally covered in shit, let's say. All you see is shit. So if somebody says to you, stop and smell the roses, what are you going to do? You're going to say, what are you talking about? All I smell is shit. It doesn't smell good, because that's where you're at. That's why we say you can't see past yourself. You can't see your way out of it if you're so deep in it. When you are so deep in your resentment, your trauma, your past pain, the past. If you're so deep and stuck in the past, it's really hard to be present, isn't it? It's really hard to move forward or to even see a future. Because when you're in a place that has you locked into your 5 senses, the depths of your emotional despair, it becomes the wallowing. You know, you're marinating in it. And if you don't have the techniques or the skills to get yourself out of those places, what will end up happening is it will consume you. This is why meditation and mindfulness practice is so important. Because when you are able to see things as an observer, see things that go on in your crazy mind, I know my mind's pretty wild, when you can be with yourself and still be of this observing space, a witness to what's really happening, you are that much more forearmed. You are forewarned, therefore forearmed. You know your patterns. You know the way your thoughts process. You know where you go. And you know how it arises in your physical body. The more you become in touch and in tune with your own shit, the good, the bad, the ugly, like I say, nobody and nothing can take you out of that truth, that empowerment, because knowing thyself is a superpower. It allows you to make educated decisions and choices that keep you in the position of power. Empowerment is all about knowing what you got going on, what you got you working with, and that everything outside of it is really going to show up to challenge how well you know it, how strongly you'll defend it, what is a priority, what is an integrity, and what is not. Because that's the trick of life, is it's this game. It's going to throw the dice at you. It's going to ask you, did you learn that lesson? Remember the last time that happened? It seems familiar, right? It's popping back up. It's rearing its ugly head. It's coming to remind you of the lesson. And it'll try to poke and provoke you into checking to see if you are going to go with old habits or you're going to try something new. Because with awareness, you have the key to unlocking the door to a new direction. If you allow things from your past to suck you in to old toxic patterns and behaviors, we all know what happens when we do that. We have it's like buyer's remorse, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did it again. How did I allow that to happen? Because that's when the mind is mastering you and you're not mastering your mind. So when you sit in mindful meditation and practice breath awareness and you tune into all of your senses, you tune into what it is that's going on within you and how when things do arise with you that you're more in tune with it. You're like, okay, oh, that's that thing that happens. You know, you start to remember, I remember what happens when I feel that burning up the back of my neck, the heat across my chest, the stomach, the sinking or the butterflies, whatever it is. We have physiological responses because the mind incites the response, trauma response. Every time a trauma is triggered, something catches us off guard, it charges us, it short circuits our wiring, which is why it's important to have a strong nervous system. All of this is really all intertwined. If your nervous system is out of whack, you're going to get short circuited left and right. Breath awareness is the key. Working on the breath is the most important thing you'll ever do. So the physiological response is just cueing you into, hey, indicator, body language, we got something going on, something's percolating. Anytime you want to blame something or someone outside of yourself, all you're doing is projecting onto that person the things you dislike about yourself, the things you're unwilling to own, accept, and honor, where you've been and what you've done. To judge another is to judge thyself. Don't be bitter from your past and create more bitterness around you. This is where I was saying, if you're stuck in the mud, it's really hard to see yourself out of it. If you can sit with yourself and become familiar, try 40 days of just sitting with yourself in mindful breath awareness and just witness your thoughts. Don't respond to them. Don't attach to them. Just be in awareness of them. Okay. Be curious like a child. Lean into them and ask questions. What are you trying to, you're getting my attention. Okay, tell me more. What do you got to tell me? What do I need to know about the situation? Is there something you want to discuss? Because the mind will go off in its chatter, right? And when it does, it's not fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. You don't need to go into stress response. That's your instinct. Because coping mechanisms, the ego, the mind, it wants to protect you from the past and all those times it happened before. When we go into the trauma response, once we've been triggered, we are immediately irrational because that has triggered emotions. And while we are in that state, that physiological, we are reliving every single trauma we've ever experienced in our life. In that moment, we are triggered. Doesn't matter the messenger, the person who triggered you. The body, it keeps score. And for every trauma you've ever experienced that you did not resolve, that was not completed, it's unresolved, and the needs were unmet. For every time that comes up, it's an opportunity to heal it. To console yourself, to claim yourself, and to calm yourself. To give yourself your own personal reassurance that, wow, I didn't even realize that was still in me. Be forgiving with yourself first. That's the most important thing you'll ever do, is to be in forgiveness for yourself. First off, because what's the first thing you do? You start to judge yourself like, oh, I'm so mad that I'm even getting upset. Oh, I'm so mad that this is happening again. Oh, I'm so mad. Why is this happening to me? It's because you go into the victimhood mind spin, crazy tailspin in the mind. It just goes off and off and off. Oh my gosh, here we are again. You know, the judgment, the critic in the mind starts going on. You need to forgive yourself for even that mind chatter. Because all that's there as a result of a shaming and a blaming and a guilt complex that somehow we've all gotten it conditioned into us. The way that our culture has become, cult comes from culture, people, is that we've all learned how to feel ashamed, to not feel worthy, to have to prove ourselves constantly. And really what that's about is about control. If we're not in our truth, standing in our personal power, it's easier to control us. So if we're disempowered from the moment we're born, we're basically told we were born with sin, especially if you were born into a religious family. The religious teachings essentially tell you you are sinful just from the sheer fact that you're a human, that you were born. You were born of sin. What kind of God are they coming up with or lying about? I don't believe it. I challenge that lie. And I challenge every one of you to drop that whole story out of your entire narrative, your life. It does not belong to you. It is not yours. Don't trust it, because fear's a liar. Not only is fear a liar, but it's out to get you. And a lot of people are feeling the heaviness. And yes, a lot of people are feeling bitter and resentful. You know why? It's not about what's going on around you. It's what's going on inside of you. When you are out of touch with your senses, when you are out of touch with your being, and you are out of alignment of your own personal integrity, when you are compromising yourself to the point where your soul is suffocating, your soul is screaming, and your heart is bleeding. Because you're going with this. You're allowing this to rule and run the show. No matter what you're being told you should or shouldn't be doing in the world today, going through your daily activities, if your soul does not align with what you're doing and what you're being told, you will suffer. You will suffer in silence. And most often, if you're not conscious of it, you're going to suffer even more. And here's why. As sovereign soul beings having a human experience, we are here to carry out a certain role, a certain mission. And it has to do with our souls, not with our heads. These heads, these minds, and this is what's dropping in. This is the download for tonight, by the way. This is to wake up whoever watches this video, to remind you that your soul came here to do a certain role. It has a mission, has a contract, it has a purpose. Every single one of you that's watching this right now. Every time you deny your soul's freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom to gather, freeness to breathe. Breath is life. Breath is the spirit. Every time you breathe in, that is God, that is source, that is spirit. That is your source of life. That is soul, that is your essence. And the more you constrict that, restrict it, silence yourself that way, that is, to me, that is crimes against not just humanity, but oneness. This is a spiritual war. When you are being attacked through the physical body to suppress your soul and your natural expression of being, you are a sovereign being. Know your rights. Most people don't know their rights, so they don't know that they can defend them. You cannot defend what you don't know. Your soul knows. And if you have any type of physical dis-ease, any type of cancer eating you from the inside out, because that's mental, that creates itself in the body. That's what bitterness does. When you harbor resentment, frustration, you don't act upon your heart and your true calling, you don't listen to the nudges of the universe, and you let this master you. Because when your mind is in control and you're allowing it to run the show, you're enslaved to your own self. You're enslaved to everything that you allow to run the show. You disempower yourself that way. You're giving your power up to someone else. Only free will, only from that giving away does it feel like victimhood, but we do it to ourselves. If you're watching this, you're an adult. You can choose. And I say that's a superpower that most people do not put into play, that would change their life in every way. So I want people to understand and to just tap into the bitterness or whatever resentment, whatever stifling that you're feeling, that you feel like you're being held back. Someone's holding you back from something. You feel blocked. You feel stuck. What can you do in this moment now that will make you feel better? In what ways can you bring more joy into your life? Can you take walks out in nature? Can you get out of your routine, your habits? The best way to shift things and shake them up and out is to move your body. Get up and dance. In fact, that reminds me I need to dance today. And I mean like move your physical body. You know why? Because you realign your chakras. Your body, you get those happy hormones flowing in your bloodstream. Your body is meant to move, people. Being stuck on a couch or sitting in a chair behind a desk. This isn't natural, this isn't life, and it isn't living. These are just things that somehow as humans we created as if we needed to go along with this robotic lifestyle. It doesn't make sense. And if you do feel claustrophobic, really, this breath work, right? So breathing with me. In, long, slow, deep breathing in through the nose, deep down into the pelvic floor, and the belly expands and the chest rises. And then on the exhale, the chest relaxes and the belly pulls in and up and the ribs contract in. We expand on the inhale, we contract on the exhale. With the expansion, we feel the energy filling the room. And on the exhale, we feel all that containment of energy and we elongate. You can set intention with the breath. Listening deeply, feeling into our physical body. Where do you feel tension? Where do you feel constriction? Because ultimately, your body is telling on your mind. So let's go back to why a lot of people are feeling bitter and resentful. What is it you're not doing? We can blame other people and say, well, this is my challenge, this is my obstacle. But what steps can you take in the direction that you want to make? Where do you want to be? What can you do for you? We use other people in other situations as excuses. And the only person we're really bitter and resentful and frustrated with are ourselves. It's never the other person. They're scapegoats. Anytime we point fingers out at someone else, it's a scapegoat. It's us just saying, I don't want to take personal responsibility in this moment. But from a conscious level, when you start tuning in to your own body awareness, to your own, all right, what am I feeling in this moment? And what the heck is going through my mind? If you're willing to sit with your own mind, it's going to give you some serious insight. It's going to show you the patterns. It's going to teach you how it is you create a story. And as you watch, you witness, you listen, be like the curious child and inquire and ask questions. Why do I feel that way? What does that remind me of? What is the memory that it brings up? What is the trauma it invokes? What is it? Where do I feel it in my body? Can I breathe into those areas of tension and discomfort? And can I relax into them? So if we have pain in our shoulders, what are we carrying? Too much weight? Too much emotion? Some other trauma, story, maybe even somebody else? What are we holding on to that our body's like going, I need a break? So I don't know if any of you have friends. There are sometimes these people that just go on and get negative, right? I've been there. We have all been there. And what you recognize in another is going to always show you some reflection back to you. And the reason being is because we humans cannot experience ourselves unless we experience ourselves through another person. So when I'm having a dialogue with somebody, I would not be able to experience myself unless the other person were present to mirror and bounce off of. And we do this because that is what our soul came here to do, is to connect. Life is about relationship. Life is about engaging and interacting with one another. It's not about hiding. Oh my gosh, I got to put up walls. I gotta isolate and quarantine and keep away from other people. Actually, that's quite the opposite of the whole purpose of being here. That is not life promoting. That is life demoting. When we are apart from one another, it causes more anxiety. It causes more depression, more stress. And you know what stress is? Stress is essentially fear. If you're in constant chronic stress, then you are in constant fear. So ask yourself the next time you feel stressed out, what am I afraid of? A lot of people use fear to motivate them in the direction they want to go instead of being inspired and pulled by love, which is less exhausting. When we allow fear to motivate us, it doesn't have quite the oomph, it doesn't have quite the power behind it, that love that is inspiring. So you've heard me say before, we're always either coming from a place of fear or a place of love. And if you recognize that you're being motivated through fear, that's from a place of fear. It's not a natural inclination to do something. It's more of a reaction. Whereas with love, it's a response. You feel the call to love. You feel inspired to flow in that direction. It's natural. It doesn't take effort. Whereas with fear, because it's reactionary and it is a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn situation, that's going to be more exhausting. That's going to drain you of your life force, your energy, your prana, your breath, more than anything that takes you in the direction of love. You feel the heart. You get pulled in that direction. That is in alignment with your soul. That is your heart. That is leading the way. And we all want to be inspired by love, not motivated by fear. So the reason we are feeling so bitter and resentful is because most of us right now are doing things out of fear, not out of love. And that creates that inner angst, frustration, resentment, because it's not coming from a natural place. It's coming from the stress response. It's coming from that I'm fear of this, and that means I need to do that. Whereas love says, I feel called. And there's a little, there's a sweetness to it. Sweet versus bitter. Again, If you are one of those people, you catch yourself being bitter, you catch yourself being nasty. What is the most common thing? When you're in a crappy place, when you feel the worst, you start dragging people into your drama trauma. You know, misery loves company. You start putting people down to lift yourself up, which is not the way to do it. Because here's the thing. If you are picking out someone else's faults, all you're doing is harming yourself. When we think we're causing harm to another, or we think that it's not against me, it's you, it's always against ourselves. What we do to another, we're doing to ourselves. That in itself also causes our heart and soul to suffer, because that's not natural. That's from the fear response. That's not from the love response. The true love response is going to say, I might not agree with you, but I still want to see you happy, and I can still love you. We can still be friends. We might not agree on everything. You might have upset me one time. I'm going to forgive you. I don't want to hold you to the one time you did one thing wrong, because everybody deserves forgiveness, and I would want the same thing for myself. I forgive you because I would want forgiveness for myself, and when I forgive you, I'm actually forgiving myself. Because when we say someone does something to us, it's only that we feel deceived by our own truth and intuition, that we didn't trust ourselves enough to make a better choice with the other person. We feel they've deceived us, but it was us that deceived our own self. It was the lack and the inability to trust an intuition, a guidance system that was probably telling us, not such a good idea. And we went along with it anyway. This came from here. When your head is leading you, you make poor decisions. When your heart is directing you, inspiring you, tugging you in the direction of your flow, natural order, it's effortless, it's more powerful, it's more solid and grounded and safe and secure. How about that one? And a lot of times for most of us, because we don't understand what love is supposed to feel like, we only know what we think it looks and feels like because of old toxic habits and environments we may have been around most of our lives. The reason people stay in abusive relationships is because that's all they know. And to them, that's a form of love. It's a connection. Whereas we need to try things outside of our comfort zone if things aren't working within the comfort zone. If we're unhappy in a situation, we need to challenge it and change it up. That takes a whole lot of courage. We need to start trusting in here and listening to what goes on up in here, because the more we're willing to listen to this, we could pretty much figure out our patterns and what we're going to do next, because we're more informed of this craziness. So again, with bitterness, the person who is so caught up in their own self-hatred is going to be the most critical, the most hypercritical of others. How do I know? Because I've been there. You can't know what you don't know until you know it. And the thing is that we don't even know ourselves well enough to see it in another. We think we can change others when we can barely change ourselves. We can't be doing that. We can't be trying to fix the world, make other people do things to make us feel good, if we're not even willing to do it ourselves. Work on yourself first. Let others worry about themselves. That's just a distraction from you doing your own healing work. That's a distraction from you taking personal responsibility for yourself. Thinking you know better for another person, that's not healthy. But when it really boils down to it, you are a sovereign being and you have the power of free will. You have the opportunity to choose to be better or to be bitter. And there's just the awareness that maybe you're vacillating more bitter or more better. Just in that awareness, you can start shifting things, but you got to be in awareness of it. If you don't see it, you can't see your way out of it. That's the truth of how life operates. But you have to be willing to sit down long enough to see what exists within you. You can say you see it all outside of yourself, but just to take a step back and to go, wow, ooh, if I'm seeing that outside of myself, how much of that is actually in me? Because if you spot it, you got it. And what you see in another is always reflecting back at you. You can project out your stuff at people, but it's going to reflect right back at you. Like I said, 3 fingers back when you're pointing the 1 finger out. That's a loaded gun. You've got to be very careful. You're going to point a finger at someone else and be prepared for the ricochet, those 3 fingers coming back at you, and take personal responsibility in your part in life. We don't want to be bitter. We want to be happy. We want to be better than we were the day before. Competitiveness is only with ourselves, essentially. Every day when we wake up, we should be striving to be the better version of ourselves from the previous day. And every generation is meant to improve upon the last. So if you have children, just remember your children are there to help you evolve just as much. And they are meant to do better than you. Don't hold them back from that. Those children, they're supposed to be you know, what do we say? You're 1.0, they're 2.0. And their children 3.0. Let them grow and evolve and do better than you. You know, back when I was younger, we were taught to respect our elders. And there's this unspoken mentality that we're not supposed to do better than our elders. That in itself can be a limiting belief that has kept you stuck all your life. The thought that you're not allowed to do better than your mother or your father because they didn't go to college or they didn't get the degree that, you know, they claim they want you to get, or they didn't make 6 figures, so you're limited to what they made and not above. That loyalty only causes more suffering because your soul came here to do better than they did. Your ancestors want to see you succeed and improve and do better than they did. It may not have seemed like that when they were alive, but I guarantee we got a whole lot of ancestors that are cheering us all on right now. And they're saying, don't suppress your soul. If you're wondering why you're bitter, it's because you've been not listening to your heart. You've been letting this head, your mind, master and run the show when you need to drop into your heart and go with the flow. Be pulled in the direction of your dreams and your desires. Don't be shoved, because the head shoves you in a reactive movement. The head moves you in such a way that it's always about reacting to a situation. It's always crisis response. Whereas the heart is like, hey, ooh, this feels right. This flow. And, you know, if you're not in tune and in touch with your own intuition, your own body, your own senses, you're going to be really confused about this, because you're going to sit here and tell me that, and I've heard this because I've been there, you're going to say, but it feels familiar, it feels good, but you're not recognizing that it's familiar, which quite often the familiar is a sheer sign. It's a warning, it's a red flag that says if you're feeling something that feels good because it's familiar, it's an indicator you're going to repeat a lesson and an experience, just with different characters. And the best way to explain that one is ladies, and boys too, gentlemen. Whenever you meet someone and you have that spark, that instant chemistry, that is the last thing you should be looking for. That is the last thing that you want. And you know why? Because every time I've ever had that spark of chemistry, every time I've had that, oh my God, this person, later I remembered, oh, that's why I felt that. After learning lessons, after going through the experience. Oh, that was just like the last such and such person that I dated. Oh, the familiar spark, the chemistry. Yeah, that might have been nice for a short time, but that's a short term. And that's why they call that the honeymoon stage. Because you dive into the familiar. Oh, we just felt like we knew each other. Oh, we're soulmates. Oh, we're twin flames. We're meant for each other. There's passion and chemistry. No, honey, that's the familiar whisper No, that's that slap upside the head that's saying, wake the fuck up. That familiar is not necessarily going to get you in the place you want to be. It's going to remind you where you've been. And that is just a fact from my life. So when I see people, I'm much more in observance more of how people are, how they behave. And if I do catch myself with chemistry, I actually step back and take a deep breath like, oh, there's something familiar. Let me lean into this, but don't let me get lost in it. It's okay to lean in, but don't get lost in. That's a huge lesson. And that comes from life experience, and that becomes your wisdom, is that you recognize, I've been here before. It doesn't have to be a bad turnout. Because if you've been there before, you can proceed with caution and do things different than you have in the past. Not diving in and losing yourself in a relationship or a situation because it's familiar and it feels comfortable. If anything, when you go in with caution, then you can maybe even heal those past relationships and those situations you've been in. Because with awareness, you are forewarned and forearmed. And just like going into battle, you've got some ammo. So at least then you can proceed and go into the situation with the caution, allow the person to show up to you, and just lean in, but don't get lost in. And then when you see the red flags, because you know you'll see them, look for the familiar flags and don't dismiss them. Oh no, that's not what I saw. Oh no, they didn't do that. Don't do that. Don't make excuses for anyone. Don't even make excuses for yourself. Own it, because you don't need to be repeating the mistakes that you've made in the past. Familiar is nice, but it doesn't necessarily make it better. And you don't need to be bitter over the past. You don't need to be cynical about it either. Oh, well, this, the chances of this being bad is, don't be negative Nancy. See, there's the thing. This is one of the things that I noticed today. I was like, gosh, I could so easily get caught and tugged into that negative mind space where you can complain about one thing and then it's like this spiraling ripple effect and the dominoes start falling and all you end up doing is complaining. And you got to be careful the people you're around and surrounded with, because there are some people who will not only enable that, but they will jump in and the two of you will go full on in that negative space. All you're doing is creating a cloud of negativity. And then what you're doing is attracting more of it to you. So I was reminding my dad, and I were having a conversation earlier, and I love my dad. Sometimes he has his moments. I mean, I'm a product of this man, so it's not like it's not mine too. Again, I recognize in others pieces of myself. So I don't want to criticize. I don't want to judge someone else because I'm judging myself. That if I see them in a nasty space, I have to look at that as mine too. You have to see the other as you. Because if you're unwilling to see the other as you, you won't even know what's true about yourself or another person. And if you're willing to see those pieces in others with compassion, then you're going to find it in yourself too. Again, everything starts with self. Patience starts with self. Compassion starts with self. Love is the root of it all. If you can't find that for yourself, it's going to be very hard to find it for others around you. And you would want people to pray for you, wouldn't you? You would want people to say kind things about you, to praise you, to talk about all the wonderful things that are you, that make you who you are, the things that you do, that bring joy. Think about that for a moment. If you can get into a space where everybody who maybe even offsets you, triggers you, makes you think, ugh, I don't want to be around that person. If you can find things that are good about them and just say little prayers, little blessings, like I'm so grateful. Gratitude. Gratitude is the quickest way to drawing beautiful things into your life. Believe it or not, when you pray for someone else, you're praying for yourself. When you're uplifting someone else, you're uplifting yourself. Think about that energy. What kind of energy do you want to draw to you? Because whatever you put out, you get right back at you. And if you are in a negative space where you put others down, you're putting yourself down too. If you are physiologically, toxically in a space of hate, and I see a lot of this right now, that bitterness is not a good taste. And it doesn't look good on people. It ages you. It ages you. Look in the mirror. Whenever you get into spaces that really cause you to be negative, look in the mirror at yourself. I guarantee you'll notice a difference in your skin. You'll look differently in the eyes. Where's your spark? Where's your sparkle? Do you look sullen? Do you look vibrant? Because when you create that positive space, that positive mindset, it's going to radiate from your being. But if you're in the toxic negativity, you're spewing hate or just nasty comments or putting people down, you're aging yourself, you're weakening your own immune system, you're suppressing your soul because it's not in alignment with it. Your soul wants to celebrate you and everyone else. The more we can come back into that space of what I do for myself is also for you, and what I do for you is also for me, this world can heal a whole lot quicker. That our immune systems will be boosted. It does actually create chemical reactions in our physical body that connect the mind, body, soul. And that's why I say the bitterness is the suffering of the soul, because it's not in alignment. When you're living from your head, everything below that is denied nourishment. It's denied connection. It's not living. That's actually evil. Evil is live introverted. So when you hear that something is evil, it's because it's trying to kill life. It's trying to suppress it. And the mind, although our egos, our minds want to protect us, a lot of times what our minds will end up doing is lead us astray, because it's not listening to the heart. And the heart is what speaks the soul. The essence of the soul, it needs to be expressed. And if you're not leading from the heart, then you're not in soul alignment. We want to be masters of our minds, masters of our lives, not enslaved by the mind and dying. That was the thing when I lived in Europe. Are you working to live or living to work? These days, it's a question of, are you living? Are you living in anticipation of death? Are you living in this moment and expressing why you're here? Being bitter doesn't make you better. Yes, we've all had challenging experiences in our lives, even a bad day here and there, a bad life in some cases, whoever you may be. I used to say that jokingly. But the bitterness, all that does is causes the dis-ease within. And all dis-ease starts in the mind. Dis-ease. You're ignoring the discomfort within. And that dis-ease is essentially just the way that your body speaks for the soul. The dis-ease is because your soul is not being expressed fully. Any one of us that is suffering, everything we do comes from the mind, okay? So you've got traumas in your life, and because of those traumas, you have coping mechanisms and survival skills. And so you get triggered through life, and you still have these traumas and these healings that you need to do. You have to do the work. You get triggered. When you're triggered, you experience every trauma you've ever had in your life in that moment, which makes you irrational. And that's because you've been triggered through your senses. The five senses are how we take in input. Just like computers, we process. We take things in through our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, and how we feel. On top of the spidey sense. Through those senses, we are the most easy to manipulate and influence. When under the influence of emotions, that's when anybody can do anything to us, because that is when we're in the stress response, the trauma response. That is when we are in fear. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And if you're living in chronic stress, meaning you're in constant fear, you have a weak immune system. You have cortisol surging through your bloodstream, constant, which causes inflammation. Cortisol is only meant for short bursts to get you away from the saber-toothed tiger. You're not meant to live in fight or flight mode. You're not meant to live in the sympathetic nervous system. You are supposed to be able to bounce back. The nervous system needs to be strong. This is why breath work is so important. The nervous system needs to be able to relax after you've gone into the sympathetic, react, life or death, life or death. Come back to the relaxation, homeostasis. You have a strong nervous system if you can go, and then the quicker you can bounce back, the stronger the nervous system. Hence the reason for meditation and breath work. If you do not strengthen your nervous system, then you're going to get short-circuited. And without a strong nervous system and your wires getting crossed and shorted, you're going to be easier to trigger, to poke, to provoke, to catch off guard, to manipulate, to control. Weakens your immune system. I mean, this is all connected to the heart too. I mean, come on. You know, we are machines. We are electric beings. It's kind of a cool thing when you really get into it. That we are stars, you know, we're made of all the things that stars are. And that there's all these signals, all this energy moving through us that we don't even have to think about. Ironically. And most people aren't. They're just going through motions, habitual motions. But when you are in awareness of all those motions, all those thoughts, that's when you got some, you got your mojo, you got your control, you're a personal power. You know, Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. Power is innate in every one of us. That's the heart. Force comes from the place of fear. Anytime you feel you got to force something or make it happen, that's coming from a false power. That's coming from the fear department. That's reacting to FOMO. That's reacting because you're afraid that you're not going to get love ultimately. But then when you go back over to the love space, again, that's where you're in your parasympathetic nervous system, because that's where you nourish yourself back. Everything is a polarity, is a duality, is extreme. You're constantly on the pendulum of life, people. You are either in this extreme or that extreme, but you got to find your way to neutrality, to the 0 point, to your baseline, your homeostasis. You got to find your neutral space to be able to witness, observe, and respond, as opposed to getting caught off guard because you're not in awareness of yourself or tapped into your intuition, into me I see, and get caught off guard and pulled out of your peace because you're reacting out of fear. Nobody wants to be in that space. That's what causes the bitterness. When we're in the chronic fight or flight, freeze or fawn, stress response, we're in fear. Something's going to get me. Every time, something's going to get me. That is what causes dis-ease. That is where the bitterness, you're not in alignment with your soul when you're in that space. And you got to come back over to where the love is, to where the heart leads, to where the heart is compassionate for all the craziness that your mind wants to dismiss. The heart is, oh, come here, honey. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to love you. And it doesn't matter. I forgive you. And I want you to know that you're safe. It's never going to lead you astray. Fear is going to put you in some pretty crazy situations that you don't want to be in. Nobody needs any of that. So I hope this message is hitting the right people, and let me know, how are you handling these times? Are you in bitterness? Are you being better? See, when you know better, you can do better, right? So again, when we bring it back to the breath, we bring it back to the awareness of our mind, we master our lives, each and every one of us. You have free will. You get to choose. And you do not have to choose somebody else's stuff. You don't, and don't let people bully you. A lot of bullying going on. So yeah, there's a lot of bitterness because of the bullying. And I witness it, and I'm like, wow, same people who would say they're against bullying are doing it too. And it's out of fear. So even from that perspective too, these people that you feel bullied by, bullies only bully because of fear. They're motivated again by the fear. They are in a constant stress. They are in a constant situation of, they're afraid they're going to be found out. They're afraid they're not going to be lovable or nobody will like them. So in some ways, in a lot of ways actually, there'll be people who will bully and turn around and reject you because of their own fear of rejection, so that they'll have the upper hand. I know, because I used to do stuff like that, especially in relationships. If I felt like I was being rejected, that was easy. Let me reject them first. I don't want to be the first one to break up. Let me be the first. See? Beat them to the punch. Oh, that didn't work out. We can be dismissive about it all, but in the end, we all want to feel loved. It is kind of like a, this really sucks. I keep putting myself in self-sabotaging situations. Everybody's done it. We've all been there. We've all done that. It's all good. We have to have experience to witness and observe that, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I had that experience. Let me try something different. Let me try a different experience. There's a lot of anger. And just honor that. Feel that. Lean into it. And you know what I do? Go in the mirror. I'm really fucking angry right now. Look at yourself and just tell yourself, this is how I feel. Let me tell you, it lifts a lot quicker when you sit with it and you acknowledge it. Because energy, emotions are supposed to stay in motion. And when we dismiss it, it gets lodged somewhere because it's hanging out waiting for us to recognize it. And then when it does rear its head, it's like, hey, I'm kind of hanging out over here. I'm pissed off in this little crevice of your elbow or wherever it decides to hang out. I'm mad because you didn't acknowledge me when I was mad before. Could you come over here and just sit with me for a moment? How much happier the world would be if more people would just sit in their bitterness and say, fuck, this sucks. This really sucks. But guess what? It's a temporary suck. You're not meant to live there. It's not going to happen forever. You will get through it. You will get over it. It's a choice. You can do it now or several times until you finally realize to sit with it and just do it. Just be it. Just experience it. Again, the world would be a much better place if people didn't just put that heavy backpack on of all their trauma, their baggage. I think let me pull that out. Oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Oh, I can't handle you right now. Oh, you. Ooh, no. You just keep on pushing it back there. That baggage gets so heavy. In fact, it gets heavier every time you deny and reject and suppress a feeling that's been rejected, suppressed, and ignored in the past. You're reinforcing what you suppress and oppress and reject and ignore. You reinforce it and you make it stronger so that it comes back with full force every time. How many of you out there have had an experience that you're like, how did it get this bad? How did I allow it to get this bad? And if I did, whoa, why? What was so bad that I couldn't look at it then that now I'm forced to look at it? I've had a lot of those. How did I end up in the hospital with appendix outburst, you know? I've had to sit with my own physical chronic pain and stomach problems because for me, emotions, stomach, hello, holding things in, not expressing myself when I needed to. Now what am I doing? I'm teaching people. You need to be doing this. Why? Because you don't want to be suffering. You don't want to end up with an actual dis-ease in the body. Because the body keeps score. And the more you ignore it, the body will remind you. Nobody needs to get to a life or death situation. And every dis-ease, every discomfort has a message for you. It's right there with the information you need if you're willing to listen, if you're willing to lean into it. Be curious. Most of it's our inner child just feeling rejected and abandoned, that we just didn't watch out for it. And hey, I'm here for you. You know, like our abandoned inner child's like, hi, I'm still here. I kind of need your attention. You know, like since I've been 3 years old and you're like 47 now or whatever and still waiting. So let's not let the bitterness get the best of us. Let's find the better. Let's do the better. Let's be the better. Let's find the sweet nectar. It comes from the heart and soul. That was my message for tonight. Because today was a bittersweet day. Yeah, and you know, it's harder the older you get. And many of you who have older parents, or maybe you're older yourself, and you witness it in people, and you don't want to see them bitter. You don't want to see them upset. You don't want to see them angry. And I try to call out people sometimes, especially in my life, that I love my family. And I call them out, and I get the defense. I get the, oh, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to talk about this. Okay, Dad, I'm calling you out on this video. I'm sorry about that, but I love you so much. You're serving as a beautiful example. He just gets caught up with things that I don't feel he should let bother him. And he says, oh, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. You're talking about it. You do care. And then I remind myself that you're not angry with that person. You're angry at yourself. Some aspect in you is being awakened in that person, and you're projecting your anger and your resentment toward them, but it's really an internal thing. And if anything, pray for that other person if you are that angry and you're that bitter, because at least if you're praying for them, you're giving that prayer back for yourself. But when you're talking shit about them and you're complaining about them and you're really nasty, and that some people out there are like, I want to see them gone, dead, whatever. No, you don't want that for anybody. Because what you wish upon someone else is what you're wishing upon yourself. That is actually a prayer. Whatever it is you're thinking is a prayer. And it needs to be, every thought needs to be considered a devotion and a sacred practice. Think about that one for a moment. That if you harbor ill will toward another person, that's an inner harm that you're causing. And that's another reason why people don't understand. Why do I have this disease? Why did this happen to me? Think about the people you've harbored resentment and ill will towards. You didn't do anything to them. You did it to yourself. And that saddens me the most, is the amount of people that walk around angry at other people, when in reality, they don't realize the depth of the anger is really back at themselves. That they may even hate somebody, but that hate is only that poison they're drinking. There's so much truth in saying that hating someone else, like expecting them to die from your hate, your anger, your bitterness, when in reality you're the one drinking the poison, expecting them to have the suffering. They have no idea. They have no idea that you are feeling that way, especially if you're not communicating it. And even if you do, it may not even be necessary. It's more for you to recognize it. So sometimes when we blow up, we get really angry, we let ourselves express it, and then later have the remorse of like, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed and I feel guilty and I feel ashamed and I shouldn't have been like that and I should have handled it better. You're better off letting it out, hopefully not toward another person, but sometimes things come out because we bottle things up for so long. And we don't want to implode. We don't want to explode. We want to be able to dissipate and disperse that energy, dismantle it and disengage, We don't want other people to be in harm. We really don't. The only reason we have that is because we've actually been conditioned to think that somebody should pay. We feel like there has to be a form of justice in the form of like we need another person to suffer for us to feel better. But that's actually such a lie. That if someone else suffers, does it really make you feel better? It really doesn't. You get a temporary maybe, I feel better because at least they got what they had coming to them, or they hurt me so bad, I hope they suffer like I did. I would never want anybody to suffer that way just because I suffered. I want people that even though they treated me harmfully or they didn't do right by me, I still want them to succeed, because if I'm harboring ill will toward them, then that's coming at me. And that's probably why maybe in my life I'm experiencing something that feels like an attack, right? Think about that. So in my past, I would hold on to resentment. That was something that I have had to deal with over my younger years. That I would harbor resentment. I would hold a grudge. That was a loyalty thing, right? There's a badge of honor. How many of us have done that? I'm loyal to my anger and my pain. You wronged me and you must make it right, or you must suffer the consequences, or you have to prove yourself to me. Strong wills can be also detrimental and self-sabotaging, by the way. So that badge of someone has wronged me, they deserve to die, they deserve to suffer. You know what? Drop that story. The only person who suffers in the end is you. The only one who actually creates dis-ease is you. You get that momentary, look at them, finally they got their, okay, yeah, you do your little happy dance. They got their little, they got their back, the revenge or whatever. And God forbid if you're somebody who seeks revenge, God forbid. This is a form of karma, in my opinion. The actual harboring of that is the form of karma that causes us the most suffering. And most people think that that's okay. And it's not about the other person, it's about you. That when you harbor that deep pain and resentment toward another person, you're creating that toward yourself. So we have to really be conscious and an awareness of if we harbor ill will toward someone, that's something we're drawing to us. We want the other person to be happy because we want the happiness ourselves. Always consider whatever it is you want for another person should be something you would want for yourself. That is a golden rule. Do unto others. Think unto others. Project onto others. What you would want projected, done, thought of you. Keep it sacred. Keep you know what? This is a temple. Mental floss. Mental floss, people. That's what meditation is. That's my mental floss of the day. You clear out this mental garbage, if you're in awareness of what's floating around in there, then that's your superpower, because then you're in awareness of what's going on up there and you know how to respond because you're forewarned. I want everybody to be happy. I wish I could snap my fingers and the world would be just a happy place. And the one thing that dropped in today, I turned around and I walked into my yoga studio ready to teach a class and I'm like, is it just me? Why do we have to pay for electric? Why do we have to pay for water? To me, it doesn't make any sense. It's all about control. I bet the majority of the people out there, I know myself, my electric bill this past month was $470 or something ridiculous. My house, the hot water heater hasn't been working since the summer. So that's one less thing that's occupying electric. Now, figure out, why is my house costing so much to run the electric? Does not make sense to me. They jacked up the prices again. During all this time, if anything, I'm sitting here going, this is the time when we need to stop. We need to stop having to pay for things that should be a given. Everybody should have access to electric. Everybody should have access to running clean, untreated, chemically, and medically. Yeah, I don't like being force medicated through the water system either. This has gotten way out of hand. That is probably one of the main reasons people suffer with money issues. Because they struggle just to have the basic necessities that every human deserves and shouldn't have to fight to keep or to even have. Free energy. Come on. We are living in the Stone Ages without having free access to all this stuff. We shouldn't have to pay for electric and water. Those are things that we should have basic access to. You know, there's just this whole crazy money war over how much they're going to keep us in this rat race, in this constant struggle and strife, trying to get by every day. I don't know. What do I know? The more I know, the less I know. And I'm constantly challenging my own beliefs. I mean, I'm sitting here going, you know, there's a certain point where everybody's got to agree to just recognize that we're all humans and we all want the same thing. I bet we have more in common than we don't have in common, because I don't believe that anyone is a bad person. And I think we're all good at heart level. But I do believe also to trust people with the way they behave. Trust them how they show up to you. You don't have to hate them because they did you wrong. Just go, okay, I trust that person. There are a lot of people that you can say you dislike because they're so transparent. But you know what? They're more honest than the people that you claim to like that are not transparent, right? A lot of people will say they don't like people to be so direct with them. They like people to beat around the bush. I have some friends like this. And personally, I'm a no bullshit person. I personally like a direct engagement with somebody. I like, you know, don't beat around the bush with me. Don't tell me a lie. Don't try to manipulate or, you know, talk me up a certain way. Just be straight up with me. I'm pretty easy to get along with. I'm not about drama. I don't have time for it. I'm not going to waste energy. Because my time is worth a lot, in my opinion. And we're all worthy of love. But not by force or control. Because everything should be natural. Again, coming from a heart space. Let yourself be led and guided. That takes a lot of trust and courage, but you have to get to know yourself to be able to trust and to step forward with courage from the heart. Le cœur. Lean into the direction that feels right in alignment with your soul. When you feel the poking stick of the evil devil, you know, the pitchfork, that's what causes the fear response and motivates you to react. Just pay attention the next time. And don't be in bitterness. Get in your better space. Look up maritime admiralty law. Start looking into some research. I think more people are going to start doing this. Now, this whole idea around the property tax thing has me curious because a lot of people don't know that their cities are incorporated. I just had this conversation the other day and I was like, the conversation around codes and things like that came up and I was asked, do you know if it's incorporated or unincorporated? And I looked at him and I raised an eyebrow like, oh, that's a difference between government for the people and being run like a business corporation, which is not, it's not human rights. There's a huge difference. Look it up. So as far as taxes go, and I have a curiosity myself because I've not yet paid my property taxes. And I always pay my property taxes, and I own my house. there's nothing in my mind that makes sense that I should even have to pay taxes at this particular moment in time. If you were to look at your tax bill, the nickel and diming, the way they take money out of us is absurd. And I don't know why. Why am I enabling this? On the other hand, there's the question. Now that you're in the system and you've been paying, what happens if you don't pay? So I have to do my own research. I implore you all to do the same for yourselves. I hope you're all doing well and you're staying blessed. Check out my YouTube channel. Do me a favor, if you're not already following me on YouTube, please make sure you are. I'm also on Clapper. I'm in Clubhouse. I'm on Telegram. I got a new TikTok account. I'm still mad about that one. They're not responding with an actual proof. And the truth about the justice system is you should be allowed to confront your accuser. And if someone claims you have violated something, they should be providing you the proof of whatever it is they claim you're violating. These, I've got community standards and guidelines, does not admonish them from having to follow properly. It doesn't absolve them of doing wrong either. So I have a huge problem with all these crazy ass guidelines. I wish you all the best evening, sweet dreams, good night, God bless, lots of love. Let your heart lead. Don't be bitter, be better. Nobody needs to be in dis-ease. And the next time you think thoughts of another person, send them love. Don't let people who upset or anger you occupy any time in your head. That's wasted energy. That's valuable space. And you deserve to keep yourself elevated. So, lots of love.